Welcome to Adams Athenaeum. Let's take a look together through the news and records of our times as we try to shed light upon the unvarnished truth. Thanks for coming back to listen to this episode where we're going to talk about how Joe Biden has brought us into World War III. A proxy World War III, mind you. Let's start here with an article. Actually, I don't even need to pull up an article. We'll just pull up some simple DuckDuckGo searches to begin with. So let's start over here. Just simply looking at reminding ourselves what's going on in the Middle East. Recently, a U.S. contractor was killed, 5 other service members wounded in a Syria drone strike, to which the U.S. has retaliated. Also shown up top here says F-15Es strike back after deadly Iranian-made drone attack on U.S. base in Syria. What does this mean? Well, Iran and Syria are both enemies of the United States. However, recently, and because of these, we can now see that after Iran, Saudi Arabia is to reestablish ties with Syria, sources say. Here, let me pull this one up for everyone as well. All right, here we go. So we'll pull up this article from Reuters. It says, again, after Iran, Saudi Arabia, here we go. And after Iran, Saudi Arabia to reestablish ties with Syria, sources say. Beirut, Riyadh, March 23rd. Syria and Saudi Arabia have agreed to reopen their embassies after cutting diplomatic ties more than a decade ago. 3 sources with knowledge of the matter said, a step that would mark a leap forward in Damascus's return to the Arab fold. Now, this is important because who were we mostly fighting in the Iraq-Afghanistan war? Iranians and Saudis. That's mostly the ground forces that were fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now they're all talking about joining forces, and who are they talking about joining forces with? Not just each other. They're talking about joining forces with the likes of, let's say, North Korea, Russia. Here, let's get some more of these articles pulled up here. Let's remind ourselves that not too long ago, North Korea was testing nuclear hypersonic ballistic missiles that could reach the U.S. in a matter of 33 minutes, they said. These missiles were meant to go out into low Earth orbit, re-enter at hypersonic speeds, basically a maneuver meant to evade American defenses. It goes too fast to be stopped. Okay, what else has North Korea been up to lately? Let's remind ourselves that recently, let's see if it got pulled up here as well. This is just all about their hypersonic missiles. Let's show you North Korea's, we'll call it the tsunami wave. We'll pull this up together right now. Just so we got all the fresh information. Look. North Korea claims it can unleash a super-scale radioactive tsunami with an underwater drone. North Korea claims test of Russia-style unmanned underwater nuke. Underwater drone could release a radioactive tsunami, claims North Korea. Interesting. Also interesting that it's a Russian-style unmanned nuke. Again, who are all these forces maybe joining together with? Thanks, Joe Biden, for bringing us into this fold. Now, are we ready for this war? Would be my next question. And that answer is simply no. Why? Well, let's also remind ourselves that we've run out of ammunition and bombs. Not literally, figuratively speaking. Some of these articles are outdated, but you'll get the gist. The U.S. is running out of bombs, and it may soon struggle to make enough. The U.S. and Europe are running out of weapons to send to Ukraine. Navy Secretary warns the U.S. may run out of weapons for its defense. running out of ammo. Is the U.S. running out of weapons to send Ukraine? Ukraine is burning through ammunition faster than the U.S. and NATO can send it. U.S. is running low on some weapons and ammunition to transfer to Ukraine. Could the U.S. military run out of artillery ammo due to the Ukraine war? U.S. is running out of ammo for Ukraine. Interesting. So Joe Biden and his family, his corrupt, diseased, vile family, with all their corrupt, scheming plots around the world, set up shop in Ukraine years ago, along with a Chinese oil company, and now they owe them a whole bunch of money. And it's funny that we start sending Ukraine a whole bunch of money. Is it to pay off all of these debts and illegal actions that the Bidens have taken place in? Thanks to Joe Biden and his son's illicit dealings in Ukraine and with China and Chinese energy companies, we have now been pulled into this proxy war. What does proxy war mean? Well, let's pull it up together. Let's bring up Merriam-Webster here, because you know I like them. Proxy war, definition and meaning. The agency, function, or office of a deputy who acts as a substitute for another. But here's the important part. Authority or power to act for another, or a document giving such authority. Specifically, a power of attorney authorizing a specified person to vote corporate stock. Okay, ignore the corporate stock part. But anyway, proxy war means this was not authorized by Congress. Why does that have any validity? Why does that have any import, you may ask? Okay, well, we need to pull up the Cornell Law School, and we'll pull up an article together so we can look at it together, so we can all have the same facts. Then we can argue where to go from there. War powers. Article 1, Section 8, and Clause 11 of the U.S. Constitution grants Congress the power to declare war, period. Nobody else. You cannot engage in wartime acts without having declared an official war, which has to be approved by Congress. The president, meanwhile, derives the power to direct the military after a congressional declaration of war from Article 2, Section 2, which names the president commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Very good. I mean, that's basically all we need to know. I'll leave it up for another minute in case you want to read it, but Congress is the only one who can declare war. Are we at war with Russia? Are we at war with China? Are we in this war with Ukraine? I haven't heard anything from Congress stating as such. And yet here we are, hundreds of billions of dollars later, America in a recession on the brink of collapse, subscribing to woke ideologies in the military, more worried about using the proper pronouns in the military than about the shit that actually matters. Our enemies, the ones that we fought for 20 years, they still want to kill us. They haven't stopped. And they're working with even greater powers, right? Iran, Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, they're working with North Korea, China, Russia. And who have we pissed off recently? Russia. Of course, China, but who cares? We need to go to war with China. I've asked Congress to declare a state of war against China for their human rights abuses with the Uyghur Muslims. Let's not forget the Chinese are holding a genocide against the Uyghur Muslims. Now, I hope you all finished reading this. So we agree. Only Congress can declare war. Has Congress declared that we are in a war against Russia? Then why are we sending military aid to Ukraine? In the beginning, I think most of us kind of understood that, oh man, this wasn't fair for the Ukrainians. You know, Russia just invaded. This wasn't right. We should help them. And then as the political scheming, the money trails that were left behind, the questions that started coming out, many of us started to realize, why are we helping Ukraine? Why are we funding all these Middle Eastern countries to have border security when we can't even fund it for ourselves? Why are we begging the Saudis for oil when we quit operating our own supplies of oil production? I've got a couple more searches here for us to look at. The next one here is going to be to show that we are at war whether or not you think we're at war. And it is a global war. All the global powers are invested. New wars can be fought by drones. How many of you have actually given time to think about this? How many of you have taken the time to watch a TED Talk that sheds light upon drone warfare, in which the presenter at the TED Talk, he's talking about drones and how they can use facial recognition software, thanks to all of the apps that you've given permission to on your phone to use your face, and you never checked what they were going to use your photo for. But some of these apps may very well give permission to Chinese companies. TikTok gives your information, your facial recognition information, your thumbprint information, gives all that information to the Chinese Communist Party. And guess what? That information can be uploaded into software, loaded onto a drone. And not, them tiny little drones that you see people flying around in the neighborhood that crash everywhere. We're talking about big drones the size of cars, buses sometimes. And these drones, and some can be little. Some can be those little propellers, guys, that you see flying around your neighborhood, right? They can be loaded with software and we'll call it a projectile launching system. It basically can take a .22 caliber bullet or something similar, and it will take the facial recognition software, it will take its flight data, and it will put a hole right through the middle of your skull. Well, essentially your ocular cavity here, right? And some of these charges can be timed so that they detonate right in the middle of your brain. That way there's no chance of, your skull breaking or penetrating the bullet in a different direction. Or even if it does, the bullet can explode itself. So people who have never met you, who are from another country, can kill you, and you'll never even know it's coming. You'll never even hear it's coming. You'll never even know that we're at war. Interesting. Many people already don't know that we're at war. Well, look at this article. Uncrewed boats are changing the way wars are fought at sea. Let's think about what that implies. Why would you leave a boat stranded in the middle of the ocean? And then right next to it, you see a picture of like a parking lot full of drones, right? A smart person would simply say, here we go. Here's a great way to launch a war. Let's load thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of drones on these aircraft carriers. Just sit them on the deck. And, these could be aircraft carriers from World War II that are about to be decommissioned. We'll just plop them in the ocean, leave them somewhere. And then when it's time to activate these drones to go to war, bam, activate the software, send them to go find their targets, thanks to facial recognition software. That's how easy war is right now. And we're sitting here comfortable in America because we still think we can't be invaded. And that's the only way that people are going to kill us here in America. We've been destroyed from the inside. We've been depleted of our energy and our resources, our ammunition, our weapons, our morality, our strength as men. I mean, recruiting numbers are down. Police recruiting numbers are down. The number of I'll say it, the number of real men that it takes to go to war, to do the hard jobs in life, are depleting. There's a bunch of little boys running around in makeup and skirts. Do you think they're going to go fight for you, ladies? Do you really think that these confused young men who are generally, because America is as a plurality, overweight. You think these fat, scared little boys running around in dresses are going to go to war to fight mercilessly and kill the enemy to defend you? This is what happens, feminists, when you take away men's masculinity. This is what happens, Democrats, when you allow the Democratic Party to run rampant with their socialist communist agenda. This is what happens, Republicans, when you fail to stand up for your values in this country as we know it. This is what happens, my fellow citizens, when for too long we've sat with our heads in our phones, staring at computer screens. Doing what? What? I mean, some of us spend the time learning on the internet. The rest of us do what? On Pinterest, on Instagram, on OnlyFans? America very likely will collapse. We may very well see the end of America in our lifetime. Maybe in the next decade, maybe in the next year or two, because our feckless president refuses to do anything. And this isn't just me fear-mongering, right? Let me pull up this one last search that I have pulled up. Just to remind you all of where we put the world and what the world thinks of America right now. It's not good. This is brought to us from the Jerusalem Post. It's titled, "A Nuclear War with the U.S. is More Likely Than Ever, Russia Warns." Ryabkov said Russia was committed to keeping the world safe and free from the threat of nuclear war, but added that business could not continue as usual. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said on Wednesday that the risk of a nuclear clash was at its highest level in decades, warning that Moscow was in a de facto open conflict with Washington over the war in Ukraine. That's all I need to read to you. Because with everything else, with the totality of the rest of the circumstances, I would hope that we now all have some kind of an inkling of the shit pile that we are in. Those of you who wanted to defund the police, scream about fascists, punch a Nazi in the face, where is your anger now? Where is your anger that the country that, even though you hate it, but refuse to leave, so to some degree you must love it, the country that you live in refuses to stand up for what's right? Instead of helping America and Americans, we fund border security in the Middle East. Damn to hell with our borders, and we let fentanyl pour in and destroy American people. We can produce our own oil safely, effectively, reliably. Same with the transportation of it. Do we do it? No. Our feckless president believes in some green climate energy bullshit. To all of you who've been screaming about it for the last decade, 2 decades, 5 decades, about how we're going to die tomorrow, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 2000. We're fucking still here, man. Apparently, the world can wait another 5-10 years, and we can continue to try to make progress in a less pollution type environment. We can try to make progress over the course of 5 to 10 years. However, that should not be the forefront of our initiatives, nor should we care about what fucking pronouns you think you deserve to be called. Nor should we care. I mean, again, these things have to be dealt with. You know, we need to deal with the transgender movement trying to groom children at drag shows. And it's not just the transgender movement, it's the whole LGBTQ plus movement. We have become so far engrossed in, to some degree, these stupid, meaningless arguments. Who are you to think that you can demand of me how to speak to you? You are nobody. When you die, Who's going to remember you? You're going to be fucking dirt in the ground. Some people might remember you for the next 5, 10, 20 years. And then what? Your name turns to dust. You are nothing. Your thoughts were nothing. Your name will mean nothing. What gender you thought you were won't mean shit, because in thousands of years, when archaeologists dig up your body, they're going to determine your sex by your bone structure. Here we are, wrapped up arguing about fucking facts, objectifiable facts. We're arguing about truth and reason and science. And our enemies are in the back corner, all amassing together, all talking about how they hate us, all talking about how we're the scum of the free world, because we are the free world. And America should die because, for once, America's weak. She can't defend herself. She doesn't have the resources to defend herself. She doesn't have the oil to be in a war. She doesn't have the ammunition or supplies to be in a war. She's sending her tanks to war. How can America defend herself, let alone Ukraine, let alone any other United Nation that we're in a pact with? Okay, we have the facts. Our enemies are working together, testing nuclear capabilities, testing nuclear hypersonic missiles, testing underwater drones that can cause radioactive tsunamis. And here we are bickering about she, him, his, her, they, them. Fuck your pronouns. There's fucking bigger fish to fry at the moment. Obviously, all people should be respected. Obviously, all people should be treated with dignity. Obviously, all people should be treated the same. I'm upset that so many people lack the emotional maturity and perspective of self-inflection to be able to admit to yourself, America's fat, lazy, confused. And what in the hell are we going to do when we get attacked? Who is going to fight for us? Those men that kicked ass for the last 20 years in the Middle East, they're fucking 40, 50 years old now, man. They can't go back to war. I mean, sure, some of them, many, like me maybe, would become mercenaries. But like, you can't. Who's going to fight this war for you? Ladies, young boys who are confused, all you fucking pronoun confused people. Are you going to go fight this war? No. You're going to scream about the patriarchy while the nukes are coming at you. I would invite you all to watch the movie Don't Look Up. It's on Netflix. It should be free. And as silly of a movie as it is, as much as I dislike a couple of the actors in there, they got it absolutely right. An asteroid coming to Earth that will impact and will kill everyone on Earth. And nobody believes it. And nobody cares. And nobody does anything to change it. And I believe that's where we're at in society. Nobody believes what's happening in the world because nobody cares to actually do the deep diving that it takes. We just hear what our president tells us, even though he's lying to your face. His press secretary lies to your face, so that way they can hide the illegal activities that your president has undertaken in Ukraine and in China with our enemies. We're in a very dangerous place. We very well could collapse. We very well could be the slaves of some other country in the next 5 to 10 years. Less if Joe Biden continues down this path he's on. Do you really want that? Think about this. Think about it long and hard. Do you want to be slave to the Chinese? Do you want to be beaten, raped, potentially some of your family murdered as you're forced from your home, boarded onto trains and planes, taken to the western mountains of Xinjiang in China, put into slave camps, labor camps, death camps, re-education camps? Are you willing to tell yourself repeatedly that you hate America, you hate yourself, you hate your identity, and that you love the Chinese, you love the Russians? Will you enslave yourself willingly? Are you okay with that? Are all of you on the left who scream about slavery and how bad it was, you're welcoming slavery. You're welcoming Americans no longer being Americans, but being a part of whatever territory conquers us. And we will be slaves. The men will be killed. The fighting age young boys will be killed, most likely. That's what a smart man would do in war. And then the women, I mean, we've all seen it in Game of Thrones, the women will be raped. Do you want that for your family? Are you okay with that happening to your sister, your best friend, your mother? My friends, you and I, we're obviously involved in politics. We're sitting here together talking about it, right? We need to get everyone you know, everyone I know, everyone you talk to, even if it's a cashier at the grocery store, ask them, do you know about the Uyghur genocide in China? Do you know about North Korea testing tsunami nuclear radioactive weapons? Do you know that North Korea is testing hypersonic radioactive missiles? Do you know that Russia has continually warned the US that they will use nukes if we don't stay the hell out of this war? Like we always promised we would. But every president since we made that promise has broken that promise. We need to speak about it. We need to talk about it. We need to force our administration to make change, or we need to force a change on our administration. If our administration is going to lead us into tyranny, then it needs to be changed. And that cannot happen legally unless we have something better to replace it with. I'd advise you all to think of something better to replace it with, unless you want to be a slave to the Chinese or the Russians. This high time of fancy and nice wordplay to stay on the internet is over. I'm going to be the honest guy, and I will be as brutal and honest with you as I can with my words while still staying within the rules. I'm not going to tiptoe around the fine lines. I'll say the bad words. And if I get fined, demonetized for it, if I lose my channel, that's the consequence that must be paid. Things need to be called out, my friends. Things need to be spoken about. Your voice needs to be heard. You have a voice. Use it. Don't be afraid. And together, all as one, once we all have these same facts, once we all understand the same potential that could happen, then maybe we can move forward. And I hope we can, because I refuse to be a slave to Russia or China or any of the likes, North Korea. And if that's what you want, America, count me out. I'll be posting videos throughout the week to help remind you of what Joe Biden has done to this country and why we need to make a change, why you need to be involved in politics at any level, and why you need to vote, why you need everyone in your family to vote. Go make sure you're signed up to vote. Go make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure you vote next election cycle. Start now. Make sure you're registered to vote. I'll say it again. Make sure that you're registered to vote, and make sure that you vote. That may be the only saving grace we have left. I'll see y'all later.